Good evening and welcome to our Covid-19 special. 6 more sleeps before the level 4 lockdown ends. Or not. We will know on Monday afternoon if we are going down to level 3 or if the lockdown will be extended for another 2 weeks. Fingers crossed. One thing is certain, even if the lockdown is lifted, life will never be the same again, at least not for the next few months. According to experts, the lockdown will have serious, devastating effects on mental health. Earlier today, The Guardian said that urgent studies were needed into the mental health impact of coronavirus. Yesterday, the BBC reported that the UK will need extra funding to tackle mental health impact of the lockdown. Forbes magazine quoted a study which says that the coronavirus lockdown is taking a toll on mental health, especially among women. What causes mental health issues during a period of isolation? And what help is at hand? To help us answer these questions, we have with us Professor Anil Thapliyal, who is internationally recognized for leading transformation in the digital mental health area through the application of innovative approaches. Professor Thapliyal has worked with the governments of New Zealand, Sweden, Canada, and Australia. He has pioneered the design, development, and implementation of digital mental health initiatives. He has worked at the grassroots to promote, prevent, and provide social support for mental health initiatives. He is currently the Leadership Fellow, St. George's House, Windsor Castle, UK, Trustee of the Health Navigator Charitable Trust New Zealand, and a member of the e-mental health section of the World Psychiatric Association. He is also currently the Executive Director of e-Mental Health International Collaborative and the Digital Mental Health Lead at the Faculty of Health and Environmental Sciences, Auckland University of Technology. Professor Thapliyal, it's a pleasure to have you on our show. Professor, what is e-mental health and digital mental health?
Yes, e-mental health is nothing else but the use of technology for people to access to mental health care and treatment. And even post-treatment, also how to receive social support in the environment where people live. So that is digital mental health. It's a fancy word, but really looking at the way people are using digital technologies in every aspect of their life. It is just a way of accessing care and treatment for mental health care.
The reason why we got you on the show today, Professor, was due to the lockdown, there has been a lot of media reports about mental health issues. Now, how does isolation and lockdown actually affect people?
Well, that's a very good question. I think it's relevant, and anyone and everyone can relate to this question of yours. And it's a very tense time for all of us. And isolation in itself can be quite painful experience for a lot of people. The absolute silence, the loneliness, and the absence of stimulation we generally get from our day-to-day social interaction and the work and other day-to-day aspects of our life, that is missing. And that is anytime when the isolation is more than 15 minutes, that can provoke levels of anxiety. And that is what we're talking about here is, it is quite akin to being in a solitary confinement.
Right, so what you mean is when prisoners are kept in solitary confinement without any interaction, that's how people feel when they're at home.
Well, there could be some parallels to that, but when prisoners are in solitary confinement, then they do not have access to the digital technologies the way we have it in our own homes, the access to the phone. So there, it's very unfair to compare the two, but there are some similarities.
Okay, so what's the pathology? What happens? So when we say that in isolation or in lockdown or when people do not have social interaction, when we say that it increases mental health issues, what is the pathology? What actually happens?
Well, I think it is a very sort of a loaded question because we are all different. So it happens differently to different people. even if we look at in terms of how it impacts. So, like if I've been diagnosed for a particular condition, and how it's going to impact me and impact any other person at the same time with a similar diagnosis will be totally different. So I think what we are looking at here is something which is very unique, which is totally unprecedented, and it's impacting each one of us in the same household very differently.
Right. So, would domestic violence be one of the symptoms of mental health issue?
Well, domestic violence, as we know, can be indirectly or sometimes directly associated with COVID-19 or the isolation, and mainly triggered by many aspects such as stress, the panic, aggression, and the pressure of lockdown. And it also exacerbates the already fraught relationships some people are living in. There are many cases where people were being able to access help when somebody was at work, so they were able to ring the helpline or access some help using the privacy of being outside the home environment from girlfriend's place or somewhere else. But now everyone being locked up in a lockdown situation in the same environment, there's no privacy. So a lot of people are cooped up in the same environment where there's no privacy for some of the people to ring for help. So then that's exacerbating and the issues of domestic violence for a lot of people.
Right. When we speak about mental health issues, I mean, from a clinical point of view, you did mention that different people are affected in a different way. Some may be affected because of the isolation or the lack of interaction with others. Whatever be the reason, from a clinical perspective, how does a person realize that there's something wrong? I mean, is there some self-diagnosis, or is it for someone others to tell them that something is wrong? I mean, what are the symptoms clinically?
I think, generally speaking, people themselves don't see that as a clinical thing. People may be generally anxious about things. They're probably not able to sleep. People are just having a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of state of depression, which is onset of depression. So there are a lot of people becoming aggressive. There is a panic. There is a lot of things which could happen, which people may not relate to mental health as such. There are a lot of screening tools which people can use to see whether there are symptoms of mental health issues which are present or for which they need to seek some help. But the reality is, not everyone needs the same treatment for the same issues, because what we're talking about here is somebody may be having a very mild, say, issues around anxiety, mild issues around, being very, not being able to sleep, and somebody might be having a moderate issues. Somebody might be very acutely unwell that they actually require hospitalization. So what we'll be looking at here is a lot of people for the same condition, they could be either in a mild state of severity or moderate state of severity or acute state of severity. Generally speaking, when we talk about mild to moderate, we refer to it as something which are generally catered to by your doctor, which is your GP, and you can go and talk to them, and they would be able to point you in the right direction as to where to go and seek what help. Acute end is what we're talking about, where people are unable to care for themselves, or the family and the caregivers are not able to look after them at home. So such people would be requiring some specialist care, and that is generally provided at inpatient services within the hospital settings, within the DHPs within New Zealand. So there is a GPs and also the secondary care services, but there are other help services as well, like private counselors and psychologists who you may be able to access help from as well.
Okay, so there is a stigma always attached to mental health, or at least traditionally there has been a stigma attached to mental health. In recent times, I think people look at mental health issues just like they look at physical health issues. But because of this stigma, people are often reluctant to approach for professional help. What is your message for such people?
I think if I sort of twist my ankle, I'm not hesitant to go and see a physiotherapist or a JP and take whatever the medication and the treatment, the intervention that is required for it. And likewise, for many other conditions, when physically I'm impaired in any shape and form through some injury or otherwise, and I'm not hesitant to go and seek some medical intervention. But when it comes to mental health, I think there is a lot of stigma depending on where and who and which community we belong to. So it could be sometimes there could be stigma associated culturally with the word mental health itself. So maybe I see the need, but I'm reluctant because I don't want to be seen to be accessing mental health care or support for myself or for my child, for my daughter, and whoever the person may be in my household. But the reality is, if I was to treat it just like any other sort of condition for which I need help and seek early help, actually, I may be able to prevent something which can go on to become a major issue in my life later on if I don't deal with it early enough. So my main message here is to seek help and see it is any other medical impairment for which you seek help otherwise in your life.
Okay, so when people have mental health issues, not only does counseling help, but you say that there is also medication which they can take, right?
So, so as I said earlier on, it's not everyone needs the same treatment because if you're in the mild to moderate end of the spectrum in terms of your severity of whatever the presenting issue is, then you the first and foremost way the medical professionals will look at is whether there could be non-medicated options through which you could be um, you can commence your wellness journey and get back to good health. So there could be non-medicated options around self-help, self-management treatment programs, which are basically cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT-based treatment programs. So there are um, times when you do require not just non-medicated treatment options, but medicated treatment options. And so where the doctor or the clinician will use their discretion and judgment to prescribe you the medication. So I think it depends on where you are in your journey, and your clinician is best placed to determine that whether you need to be on a medicated treatment or on a non-medicated treatment.
Okay, so which also leads me to the question that if someone has been affected because of the lockdown, maybe they have lost their job or lost their livelihood, whatever they may be suffering from may just be temporary, and maybe a different type of intervention will help them, which is different from someone who is chronic.
So I think it is a tense time for most of us. And to be honest, COVID-19 is scary and it's rapidly changing the way we work, socialize, travel, access healthcare. I've had a couple of appointments with my own GP, and they've all been via telephone. The way we exercise within the home, the way we shop, the way we live, and we are feeling genuinely anxious, stressed, worried, and scared. And that is normal. This is not because I've got mental health issues. These are just the genuine feelings which each one of us, and the degrees may vary for each one of us depending on who we are and where we are in our life. So it's time to work out how we are going to look after our own well-being. And and well-being of our family, community. And this, Jacinda Ardern's, our Prime Minister's message has been being kind. And we need to get through all of this together as a community, as a one sum. And we need to be creative. So we have got a lot of messages, which you probably have seen, which are being put out there. And I think it's before going down the path of saying, I need some mental health help, what there is a lot of self-management tools out there available, and it's better to start there. And probably you'll find most of your issues, which you think were issues, will be just resolved by the time you go through some of these programs and services which are being put out by the Ministry of Health and the Health Promotion Agency.
Right. So that's I think basically your expertise, and you are working with the Ministry of Health, and also you have been in an advisory position to various governments, I think, from your bio, where you actually advise on social policy. So I've got two questions for you. The first is, can you talk us through a bit about the social policy initiatives? How does that work?
So basically, probably the word which we will use is e-mental health framework, or e-mental health policy and strategy. Basically means, how does government enable digitally enabled tools to prevent the mental health disorders, and also prevention initiatives, but also the treatment initiatives, and post discharge, what sort of social support people will receive. So using all of that, using digital technologies. So the work which we've been doing with the Ministry of Health and the Health Promotion Agency centers around all of that. And some of the examples which I may be able to show you right now is this initiative, which is, you can see this screen, which is it is called Ministry of Health initiative, called a National Depression Initiative. It's also, you can go to the URL depression.org.nz, and it's fronted by a legendary Kiwi by the name of Sir John Kirwan. And there's a video which talks about what depression is, and how he destigmatizes the mental health, and how he went through it himself, and how he accessed help, and how now he's there to help other people to do the same for themselves. So this website and many other initiatives by the Ministry of Health and Health Promotion Agency are the initiatives that are available for the public. So that is one of the Ministry of Health initiative I wanted to name, but there are several initiatives by which you, if you are looking at, is through Google. If you want to, some of the viewers who are looking at this program, if they want to go to the Health Promotion Agency website, there are amazing, high quality, good information which is available through Health Promotion Agency website. Mental Health Foundation has got amazing resources in this area, and there are many other initiatives, and if we have time, probably I can go through all of these initiatives. Roy, would you like me to just expand on it?
Yeah, if you can just name a few, so that our viewers can actually get an idea of what help is out there, which was actually my second question. So how can, suppose I feel that something is wrong with me, and I don't want to go and meet a psychiatrist or something like that. How do I access this mental health initiative? How can I go through this digital thing?
So we're very fortunate in New Zealand that we have this amazing array of help that is commissioned by the Ministry of Health and available for all New Zealanders to access. And all of these services are 24/7. So we have a service which is called 1737, which is just 4-digit number 1737, which any New Zealander can call anytime to speak with a trained counselor, and or not only call, but also text that number as well. So you can either text or call. And on that point, I'd just like to talk about the research, Roy, that how people are communicating. Texting is an interesting one. There's recent research which was done out of the UK as to how people are using the smartphones these days. And so the research results are the number one use of the cell phone, smartphones, people use it for is texting. Number two is email. Number three is Facebook. Number four is camera. Fifth is reading news. Sixth is online shopping online. Seventh is checking the weather. Eighth is WhatsApp. Ninth is banking. 10th is YouTube. And number 11 is making phone calls from the smartphone. So, so the reason I wanted to say this is, and it is very congruent with the way people are accessing the mental health care using digital channels. So the most popular way through which people are accessing the mental health care is texting, which is very congruent with this research from the UK. So texting seems to be very popular. We used to think it is only the young people, youth, who use it, but actually it is across the age spectrum. So there are many other initiatives other than the 1737. There is a depression helpline called 0800 111 757. There's people having a lot of issues around drug and alcohol around this time because being at home, cooped up at home, people have just turned to alcohol. So the alcohol and drug helpline, also 0800 787 797. And there is a COVID-19 website is all over the television and all forms of media, so people know where it is. And there's a helpline number. There is a 0800 358 5453 and a healthline, which is where people can reach out to if they are concerned about some aspects, whether they've got COVID-19 symptoms. So there are various channels, and Ministry of Health on Monday earlier this week announced 3 other new digital channels which have been made available. Mentomia is one of them, mentomia.com. Another one is melonhealth.com, and the third one is Just a Thought. So these are amazing initiatives, and there's a lot of thought has gone into it. And whether your viewers are accessing these services or not, but right now, as I speak, thousands of people are already accessing and using these treatment tools.
So, what happens on these services? Does the counselor help a person? Do they speak to them over the phone, or are there just questionnaires or articles to read? What's sitting on those websites?
All right. So, look, I think I'll answer this question in 2 ways. So, one of them is just reminds me of a very sort of a challenge which was in 2004 in Zimbabwe, where there's a country with a population of 12 million people. It had only 14 psychiatrists for the entire country. Just imagine the entire region of Auckland having only 1 psychiatrist. So they had just like any other country, major mental health issues which are prevalent in the country, but there was not enough clinicians to go around to be able to do justice to the level of need they had in the country. So they came up with an idea of what they called the friendship bench. The friendship bench was basically anybody who had a good listening skills, good empathy, sort of skills, and they were given some basic training. And they could be a grandma, somebody, a good Samaritan who's a church elder, or whoever who's out there in the community. And they started this, what they call as a benches, friendship bench. So people just went and spoke to these people. And what they were able to do is overnight, they were able to transform the entire mental health care of the nation by creating the friendship benches across Zimbabwe. So what people were looking for, the people who were in high state of distress, were looking for practical help and advice. They wanted to be accepted and listened to by somebody who knew what they were going through and had empathy with them and had a high degree of compassion. So what we were looking at here is all of a sudden a country from having only 14 psychiatrists to ended up having thousands of lay people who ended up becoming what we call is good people like sitting on friendship bench with some very small training provided to them and being able to help the entire nation. So some practical help and advice, good listening skills, empathy and compassion. So what we are talking about here when we are talking about technology, it's no different than what was happening in Zimbabwe in 2004. Now what we are doing is replicating that through the use of technology, through the use of texting, through the use of online mechanisms, or through the use of telephony system like ringing these free phone numbers for mental health care. So this is nothing else but a virtual friendship bench. So what people are able to access is when they call a helpline, say for example 1737 or depression helpline, there is a trained counselor who will basically take the call and listen to you, basically listen to you and empathize with your issue if you have any issue. If not, otherwise you may have simple query around your either for yourself or for your son, your daughter, your wife, the partner, or anybody, your mother, father. So you may have whatever the issue you may have, you can just talk. It is not something which being kind of you're not entering a clinical domain where you are being treated like a patient, but you may have queries. You want to inquire about certain things. They might put you in touch with some really good trusted resources, because one of the important thing for anybody who's going through that challenging phase in their life, which information to trust. At the moment, there is on WhatsApp and many other social mediums, there's so much information out there, and majority of the information, and I'm saying majority with a capital M, is not reliable. Actually, forget about reliable, it's harmful. So how do you get to the reliable, trusted information? It could be through these mechanisms which I'm talking about. You are able to look through whether there are issues. You can get to the nice safe websites where you can do self-assessment and see whether you have got any issues around sleep disorder or anxiety or depression. So there are those help sort of alliance which I talked about, and you can use them either using phone or texting or through online forums. So you can do it in any shape and form, whatever you are comfortable with, depending on your likeness of the medium you want to use. But there are other means which I talked about: depression.org.nz, the lowdown.co.nz, the mentormia.com. These are not helplines. These are online self-help, self-management tools. So you can go there, look at the information, but also being able to guide yourself through what could be CBT based, which is cognitive behavioral therapy treatment program. Online, it could be 6 session, it could be 8 session, depending on which program you're accessing, and do it on your own time, in your own space, from wherever you are. So there are various, so it's not one thing, it's not just helpline, it could be online self-management tools as well. So digital is quite a wide spectrum of activity, what you can do from texting to phone to online forums to self-management programs.
Right. I think that was really great information, Professor. All the self-help which is available to people who may be suffering from mental health issues, or even if you're not suffering from a mental health issue, but you think that you're anxious or slightly depressed, these are the tools that are available. So Professor Anil Thapliyal, thank you so much for enlightening us and sharing your insights with us, and thank you for your time, and thank you for coming on the show.
You're welcome. I've been delighted to have spoken to you.
One of the key points that Professor Thapliyal stressed was that mental health should be treated just like a physical ailment. There is no stigma attached to it. The government of New Zealand has provided a lot of help online, and they are at your fingertips. Please do check out these websites. Well, Well, that's all we have for you tonight. 6 more sleeps before the lockdown is lifted, expectedly. Well, thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay inside, and I'll see you again tomorrow.